Hello everyone, welcome back to Chinmoye's Biology channel to yet another new episode of Principles of Inheritance and Variation. So today's topic is going to be a very important one. We are going to study about pedigree analysis. So it's quite a new term and a new topic, so don't skip in between, because throughout the episode we will be discussing about what is pedigree analysis, what are its uses, and with all signs and symbols how we can do several pedigree analysis. So let's get started without further delay. So once when we get into the definition of pedigree analysis, what is it? So pedigree analysis is actually a scientific approach to studying the inheritance of human genes. So how the inheritance of human genes is happening from the parents, from the grandparents, and from several generations, how the genes are inherited, and particularly if there is any disease in the parental generations and how it is inherited to us, and again it is passed on to several other generations. This inheritance process is what is called the scientific approach of study is called the pedigree analysis. Okay, so it involves the construction of a family tree, and this construction of a family tree is called pedigree, and what you are analyzing is called the pedigree analysis in full, so which traces the occurrence and distribution of a particular trait or a disease among the family members over multiple generations. So suppose it is starting from your grandparents to your parents to you, and then it is passing over to the next generation. So it is a overall series of we can say that a series of occurrences which are happening of a particular disease or a trait among the family members through multiple generations. Okay, so pedigree analysis can be used to understand the family history and the inheritance of dominant and recessive traits. What does it mean? That if you are having any disease, so whether you are carrying it from your parents, your grandparents, and how it will be passed on to your next generation, and whether you can prevent it or not, that study can be done. It can be done to determine the mode of inheritance. So what is the mode of inheritance? Whether it is a recessive one, whether it is a dominant one. So these recessive, dominant, partially dominant, autosomal, mitochondrial, or sex linked, these terms you have studied a bit when you have studied about the Mendel's laws of inheritance. But few things are new, and many more new things we are going to discuss today. So let's get started with that part. And first we are going to understand about when we are doing pedigree analysis, we should know certain signs and symbols. So let's see that. Now, if we want to specifically say the use of pedigree analysis, what we can say? So, pedigree analysis actually is a tool used in genetics. So, it's the main part what we are studying here. It's genetics, and it is a tool used in genetics to determine the genotypes as well as phenotypes. Okay, so it will help you to determine the genotypes and identify the phenotypes and predict how a trait will be passed on in future. So what it is a trait? It is a disease actually which is passed on from generation to generation. Another thing what it does, it is helping to identify the carriers of genetic disorders. So we can identify whether the father is a carrier or the mother is a carrier, and to develop the targeted treatments and genetic counseling for the affected individuals and families. So if we can find out whether the father or the mother is a carrier, if any genetic counseling can be done or any treatment can be done for the affected individual, so that it should not be passed on to the next generation. So it is not passed on to the next generation. For that, if anything can be done, that studies also can be done if we are predicting the carrier and the affected individual through this pedigree analysis. Now, another thing is that is also used in animal breeding to trace the lineage and inheritance of desirable traits in livestock and pets. Okay, so in the animal breeding also the same thing, the lineage and the inheritance of desirable traits in livestock is detected. It also helps in the study of family histories and inheritance of genes in humans. So in family histories, what all diseases you all were having, and how the inheritance of the genes is happening in humans, it is also predicted through pedigree analysis. Scientists are able to find dominant and recessive patterns of inheritance through pedigree charts. So if you are observing any pedigree charts, you can find out whether it is a dominant one or it is a recessive pattern of inheritance through the pedigree chart. So these are all the important uses of pedigree analysis. So let us see how and what are the symbols of pedigree analysis to be studied. Now, when we are doing many sums and many, we can say many problems on pedigree analysis, we can first see the pedigree symbols. So, what are the pedigree symbols? So, male is represented as the square, female as a circle, sex unspecified. It means we don't know whether the individual is male or female. It will be like this. Now, deceased individuals means who have died. That is male. If they have died, we will just put this and we will put a cross. This female dies. Now if we are shading them full, it means they are affected individuals. Now this one is actually not required, individuals and generation. So it is mother and father and their kids. So this is a daughter, this is son, these two are sons. So like this, individuals and generations are represented. Now when they are meeting or married, that is called mating. Divorce, we will have a struck out here. It is consanguineous mating, means mating between relatives or very close relatives. That is consanguineous mating. This is dizygous twins and that is monozygous twins. So this you can see, monozygous twins, you'll have a line between these two individuals, while in dizygous twins you'll not have that. This we will study when we are studying reproduction, twins and all in details. So just you remember these signs. This is abortus female, that means it has been aborted before giving birth only. So this is mating has been done and individuals, one female is born and another female has been aborted. Now here many symbols are same. Now here another important thing is that Roman numerals symbolize the generation. If it is first generation, it will be written as a Roman numerical 1 and 2 second generation. Now in Arabic numerals, you are symbolizing what? Within the given generation, 1 means 1 son, 2 means 2 daughters and 3 means 3 sons. So this is at times written inside this also. If you are writing 2 inside this, means 2 sons. If you are writing 3 inside this, means 3 daughters. So this we have written here also, identical twins, non-identical twins, like dizygous twins and monozygous twins, already written. Affected individuals we have written. Now these are the heterozygous for autosomal recessive traits, means these are carriers. Both the male and the female are carriers. That is autosomal recessive traits that we will discuss in the next generation. Now this is known as carrier. So in carrier, again I am telling you, in carrier we at times we shade this as half as well. So if you are shading this half, this means carrier also. And if you are putting like this and a dot, this is carrier also. So both types of symbols you should just memorize. This I have told deceased individual and this is sex unknown. So same as we have spoken in this too. Few things are here and there. Just memorize all the symbols without like take your copy, without seeing, memorize, do the symbols again and again, practice it again and again, so that when you are getting the problems on pedigree, you should not get stuck. So it should be very easy for you all. So let's move on now to the next slide. Now, what are the types of inheritance patterns there? So first of all, we have that autosomal dominant type of traits. So I'll discuss what is autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive. Traits are passed on from one generation to another through dominant alleles. And this autosomal recessive is there. Traits are passed on one generation to another through recessive alleles. Now X-linked is there, that is traits are carried on X chromosomes only. Traits means we can say diseases which are carried on from one generation to another on X-linked means on X chromosome only. So incomplete dominance is there. These are heterozygotes, have an intermediate phenotype. Okay. And codominance is what? That is heterozygotes display each phenotype associated with each allele. So there is a codominance. So these all examples I'll be giving. Codominance means in humans you can see ABO blood group system where codominance is there. So all the blood groups, they are important in each, and they are showing each phenotype associated with each allele, right? And this incomplete dominance, you can see when mother is having curly hair and father is having straight hair, the child will have a wavy hair. That is incomplete dominance. That is neither the curly hair is dominant here, neither the straight hair is dominant here. So it is incomplete dominance of one over the another. So X-linked means it is related to X chromosome only. So Y-linked inheritance is very rare, though it's there. So I'll be discussing that in the next class, not in this class. First, let us be clear about all this: autosomal, dominant, recessive, X-linked, incomplete, and codominance. Okay, so let us move on now. Now, when we move to types of inheritance patterns, we see that we are having autosomes and sex chromosomes in our body. So, we are having total 46 pairs of chromosomes, of which 22 pairs are autosomes and 2 pairs are sex chromosomes. Okay. So, of this 22 pairs, if there is any defective gene on any one chromosome, then only we will get the autosomal disorders. Okay. And in sex chromosomes, we know that X and X is in female and X and Y are in male. So anyone, if they are having any defective gene or disease causing gene, they'll have, if it is on X, will have a X-linked disorder. So there are two types of X-linked disorder. One is dominant and one is recessive. So that in details I'll be discussing in the next slide. Now in autosomes also same thing happens. Suppose this is the chromosome, and if anyone is having a disease causing gene, so if in case of dominant, both should be having a we can say that any one of this chromosome is having a disease causing gene. Then also dominant gene, if it is there, it will cause a disease. If both the chromosomes are having disease causing gene, then it is obvious that the next generation will have a disease. Okay, so if one is having, it will be out of 4 children 2 will have. If both are having, then all will be affected. So this is an autosomal dominant disease. Now in case of recessive, what will happen in the chromosomes? Both should have a recessive gene, then only it will get the expression. So if only one is having, it might be in one generation it is not showing the expression of the disease, and it will skip the generation. So in the next generation, so suppose in the first generation it is not showing, in the second generation the expression of the disease will be expressed if it is an autosomal recessive thing. Now we will be discussing about dominant and recessive sex-linked disease, right? So how it is happening, let us move on to the next. So autosomal, we have seen recessive and dominant. Now when we move on to this sex chromosomes, so sex chromosomes, they will also have recessive and dominant. Okay, so how we will be expressing that when they are having dominant? So suppose X and X, any one is having a dominant. So this one is having dominant, this one in female, it is X-linked. So in female, this is I'm showing. So this one is not having any dominant defective gene rather. But if after cross with XY, what will happen? If the male, if the boy child is born, so they will be affected with this mother's dominant gene. Okay, so there is a chance of getting affected from this mother's dominant gene, but X and Y together, they don't have any impact on each other. So generally the diseases are either X-linked recessive, they are either X-linked recessive or X-linked dominant. Okay, X-linked dominant. So in case of dominant, if the dominant gene is in one chromosome also, it will cause, and if it is in both the chromosome, it is sure to cause in all the individuals in the next generation. So if the daughters are born, might be they'll be carriers, or they'll be fully affected. Now, what in case of recessive? So in recessive, both the chromosomes should have a recessive gene. So then only it will get expressed in the next generation. Now, if there both the genes are here recessive, and if in male also there is a recessive carrier part in X, so then either or will be having in the next generation, either of the all the kids will have, or any one or two will have. So this we will do in the next slide, showing the diagram that how they are affected. So in dominant, if one is affected, they will be affected, but if both are affected, they are sure to get affected. But in recessive, what is there? If both recessive genes are there in both the chromosomes only, they will be expressed in the next generation. If both recessive genes are there, they will be expressed in the next generation. But if only one is there, one recessive gene is there, defective gene is there, it will not get expressed in the next generation for sure. Might be any one has become a carrier, but or they will not totally become affected. Okay, so generally X and Y, they don't have a relation to each other, so they are totally separate. There are certain Y linked disorders also, but they are very rare. They are very rare. I'll discuss that in the next video, that what are the Y-linked disorders and what all are the X-linked disorders, X-linked recessive as well as X-linked dominance. So let us move on to the next slide, where I'll be showing you the total diagrammatic representation of X-linked recessive and X-linked dominant genes. Dominant this pedigree analysis, how we are doing. Now here you can see X-linked dominant inheritance and X-linked recessive inheritance. So what is happening here? So dominant means the father is unaffected and the mother is fully affected. So one gene here is fully affected and the father is unaffected. So this is a dominant in mother. So it is X-linked dominant. So mother is carrying a dominant gene. So what is happening here after the cross? This XY is totally normal. This XX is carrying mother's dominant gene, so this is affected daughter. And here this XY also, this son, this X is from mother, so it is an affected son. And here this daughter XX, what all this girl is having, one X from father and one unaffected X from mother she has got. So this X from father and one unaffected from mother she has got. So this is the unaffected daughter. And this unaffected son has got this unaffected X from mother and obviously Y from father. So this son is also unaffected. So this is how the pattern is carried on, how the traits are carried on to the next generation. This is X-linked dominant inheritance. Now what happens when we are moving to X-linked recessive inheritance? So this is, see, the unaffected father and carrier mother. Mother is not fully affected. Mother is carrier. So you can see here unaffected son, unaffected daughter and carrier daughter and affected son. So how this is happening? So after the cross, after the mating, so here this X and Y, this X is the unaffected one from mother and Y is from father, so the son is unaffected. This unaffected daughter has got this X chromosome from father and this unaffected one from mother. This carrier one has got this carrier one from mother and the normal gene from father, X1. Now this son, what he has got Y from father and he has got this affected from mother. And this as this recessive thing in mother was a carrier, in son it became as a prominent one, and this got affected. So this got expressed in the son properly. Though the daughter became a carrier, the son got affected. So this is a X-linked recessive inheritance. Okay, this is a recessive one and this is a dominant one. Now we will move on to the another one. So here see the autosomal dominant inheritance pattern. If you are seeing certain patterns only, you will get to understand how to do the problems of pedigree analysis. Now let us see here. Here you can see one parent is affected here and the other one is unaffected. But though here the mutated gene is here and it is a dominant gene. Okay. So you can see two children are unaffected and two are affected. Though it is dominant in only one, it is affecting two of the children, like two of the next generation are getting affected as it was dominant in one. So if it was dominant in two, all the children will be affected. As it was dominant in one only parent, so then 50% only was affected. Now let's come to the autosomal recessive thing. See, in this recessive, as both the parents are not carrier, only one parent is carrier. We have told when in autosomal recessive it will get expressed when both the parents are carrier. If only one parent is carrier, it will not get to be shown in the next generation. Like suppose in both the chromosomes, in both the autosomes, if both they have a recessive gene, then only it will get expressed. But here only one is a carrier, so only one is having a recessive character, but it is not present in the another chromosome, so another one is unaffected, it is the normal. So what is happening, all the children, out of all the children, only two are carrier children, so it is not being expressed in this generation, might be in the next generation it will get expressed. These two children are only carrier. Whereas what we have seen in that X-linked recessive, if any one parent is carrier also, then also that X chromosome, X-linked thing will come to either the son or the daughter as a carrier, or as in if it is going to the male one, it will affect the male child. It will be a dominant character or a dominant disease in the male one. Though the daughters might be a carrier, because if it is having the X from father and this affected one from mother, it will be a carrier, it will not be a dominant. But in sons, in X-linked recessive also, they will be affected. But there is only a difference in autosomal recessive. If both are not the carrier, if both do not have this affected gene in their chromosome, they'll not carry it over to the next generation as a fully affected children. They are just carriers. Is it clear to all of you now? It's a very we can say it's a very complicated type of thing, but once you understand it, it is very easy for you all. So then now I'll be going to discuss about all these things in a bit writing pattern, so that you can understand and you can learn that part. Now here comes the definition of what is autosomal dominant disorder. So till now we have done the diagrammatic representation, we have understood everything. Now just a definition: a disorder caused by a mutation of a single copy of a gene located on one of the autosomes. So what are autosomes? We know that non-sex chromosomes, that is 1 to 22. Okay, and 23rd pair is the sex chromosome. So inheritance, how is the inheritance pattern? Only if one mutated copy of gene from either parent is enough to cause the disorder. If any one of the gene, if it is dominant, if any one of the parent has a mutated copy of the gene, it is enough to cause a disorder in the next generation. So what are the chances of inheritance? If one parent has a mutated gene, that is dominant gene, there is a 50% chance of passing it to each child. So if it is a dominant gene, there is a 50% chance of passing it to each child. So this is what you should know and learn about autosomal dominant disorder. Now next comes autosomal recessive disorder. So here comes the autosomal recessive disorder definition. It is a disorder caused by the mutation in both copies of a gene, one from each parent. So if both the copies are not having this gene mutation, it will not be expressed in the next generation. So a disorder caused by mutations or in both the copies of a gene from one parent. So how is the inheritance pattern? The disorder only appears, it only appears if a person inherits two defective copies of a gene, one from each parent. So if both the parents are having a mutated gene, and if that is passed on to the person who is inheriting the two defective copies only from each parent, one from each parent will cause the disorder. Carriers, if one person has only one mutated copy, they do not show the symptom but are carriers and can pass it to their children. So if the parents are having, might be in this generation only children will be carriers. Okay, but it may pass on to the next generation as affected one. Okay, so this is how it is showing that it is autosomal recessive. So what is the chance of inheritance? So there is a 25% chance that their child will inherit both the defective copies and have the disorder, 50% chance that the child will be a carrier, and 25% chance that the child will inherit two normal copies. So this is what is the probability of autosomal recessive disorder. That is 50% chance of being a carrier, 25% of chance of a child to inherit the normal copies, and 25% of the child they are having inheriting both the defective copies. So this is what is autosomal recessive disorder. Now what we will move on to, we'll move on to X-linked inheritance, dominant as well as recessive. Now this is now X-linked recessive disorders we will be talking about, and these are the main type of disorders we will deal with in this chromosomal disorders. So that is what I'll be teaching in the next episode. So these are the genetic conditions caused by mutations in genes on X chromosomes. Okay, X-linked recessive. Since males XY have only one X chromosome, they are more affected than females who have a second normal X chromosome. If one of the X chromosomes is affected in females, it doesn't matter because they are having another X chromosome, so there are chances of them to be carrier. But only males, if they have this X affected chromosome and they are having another Y, there are chances of this male to get affected. Okay, so the chromosome can compensate for the defective gene in female. If one is defective, another chromosome will be compensating for this one, but male, there is no compensatory pattern, or there is no compensatory chromosome in male, so they will get affected fully. So this is X-linked recessive disorder. So all about the examples of disorders and what are the main disorders which are happening in human body, we will be dealing with that in the next video. So X-linked dominant disorders are genetic disorders caused by mutations in genes on X chromosomes. These are where recessive, and this is dominant, which where one mutated copy of the gene is enough to cause a disorder. So only one dominant thing is enough to cause a disorder. Okay, but in this we have to have two copies. Okay, so that is what is a recessive one. Recessive should have two, and dominant is one is enough to cause a disorder. And these disorders can be both affect males and females, but males often experience more severe symptoms due to having only one X chromosome. So this is same as here, because males are having one X chromosome and this disorder is only X linked, so it is on the mutation of the gene which is present on X chromosome. So if this chromosome is being passed on from the mother to the son will be more affected than the daughter, because the daughter is having another compensatory chromosome to mask the effect of this one in recessive. But in dominant, as it is a dominant character, the daughter will be equally affected as the son, but the son will have more severe symptoms. Okay, is it clear to all of you about the X-linked recessive, X-linked dominant, autosomal dominant and autosomal recessive? So I've tried my best to make you all clear about the concept of pedigree analysis and all types of autosomal dominant as well as recessive disorders. And this is what is the end of today's episode. In the next episode, I'll be discussing about all the diseases which are autosomal dominant as well as autosomal recessive, X-linked dominant and X-linked recessive. In details, I'll be discussing with each and every disease which is there as per your CBSE curriculum, and in general also many other defects I'll be talking about which is there for your pre-medical exams as well. So for that you need to stay tuned, stay updated and subscribe to my channel so that you can get the updates as soon as I post the next video. So stay tuned, keep watching my channel and don't skip in between because you'll be missing many important things. So thank you. Thanks a lot for watching. See you there in the next episode. Bye bye.